Hello, my name is Orion Irvine. I'm the Regional Director for the CLC Pacific Region, and today I'm going to walk you through how to schedule a Zoom meeting. This is going to be focused at union activists and local meetings and other such union meetings. So first thing you're going to want to do is go to the Zoom website. I recommend using the website as opposed to the app, either on your computer or on your mobile device, as it gives you more options and it's a little bit easier to use. So first step, you're going to want to click My Account. This will take you to your profile page. The only thing to note here is your time zone. Just make sure it's set to the correct time zone. Next, you can click Meetings. So you can see here a list of all my upcoming meetings. If I want, here I can delete them or I can start them. I can also click on them, see the details, and edit them as well. But we want to set up a new meeting. So to do that, we'll click here. So the first thing you want to do is put in the meeting topic. So we're just going to say local meeting. If you wish, you can add a description. If you want to be a little bit more accurate, you could say, let's say the June local meeting of Local 410 or whatever you wish. But for most of the times, I just leave it blank. I'll talk about template a little bit later. Next, you're going to want to set a time for it. And then you can set a duration if you wish. The duration just gives the participants some idea about how long the meeting is going to last. It actually doesn't have an impact on how long the meeting will run for. And if the meeting runs past 1 hour, let's say in this case, the meeting will continue and it won't automatically shut off. It's really just to give your participants an idea how long the meeting will last. Next is you can create this a recurring meeting. So if you have a meeting that takes place on a regular basis, you can click this button and there's various options. You can have it recur every 7 days, or you can have it recur weekly, either every week or every 2 weeks, or whatever you feel like it. So that's quite powerful. If you have a local meeting happening at the same time, you can set it up and then you can just set the end date. We're not going to do that in this option though. The second is registration. This option here is quite good if you wish to really maintain who can attend your meetings. So for local, if you're having a local meeting, you may want to have your members register beforehand. That way you can make sure that they are entitled to vote and they are a member in good standing. The next option here is called the meeting ID. I strongly recommend you leave it on generate automatically. This personal meeting ID is basically like a home telephone number. However, people, if they have this number, can join a meeting whenever it's running. So they could just randomly try to drop into a meeting with this number, and they could do some stuff that you may not want to. You might have heard early on that Zoom was having some security issues. They weren't really security issues as much as there were people either guessing this personal ID or finding it online and then basically just crashing into people's meetings and showing stuff that objectionable content that wasn't wanted. So a really good way to fight against this is to keep generate automatically here checked for all your meetings, including just temporary short-term ones. The other thing to do is you can also put a meeting password on. So this is good even if you do use ID like this. If you have a meeting password, people will require it to get in. So it is another security feature. And I generally leave it checked even if I'm generating the ID automatically. It's no real extra work and it does keep your meeting a little bit more secure. Now, for registration required, however, if you want a meeting password, you can certainly do that, but it's kind of 2 levels of security that may or may not be needed. The next is video. This is either if you start with your video on or off. I recommend leaving it off for both participant and for host. It's just that way people aren't surprised when they come on and their video starts automatically. Next, we have this audio section. This tells you how people can join the Zoom meeting with their audio. The option is telephone, computer audio, or both. There's no real reason to have telephone only audio. This literally means that even if you log in through your computer and your videos from your computer, you won't be able to join via audio from your computer. So most people aren't going to want that. So I recommend that you use computer audio only. The downside with that is if somebody wants to attend via phone, they can't get to a computer, they won't be able to. And in that case, you can use both and it'll allow people to dial into a phone number when they register or you send them the invite, that phone number will be in it. The one downside with this is there's a very limited number of phone numbers, to call into. For example, in British Columbia, there's only one, so it might be long distance for quite a few people. Next up, we have meeting options, and there's some really good ones in here for you to know about. First thing, this is enable join before host. So this is good if you want to have people be able to talk a little bit before you get online for whatever reason. So you might be late or they might be early. And if you want them to be able to chat amongst themselves, you leave this on and the meeting will basically start before you're there. The downside for this is you can't police what is going on at the time, and people might say stuff that's objectionable or whatever. So if you're concerned about that and you really want to be able to police what's going on, you want to leave that off. This mute before entry means that participants will come in muted, and they won't be able to unmute themselves until you unmute them for the first time. So again, that's up to you whether or not you want to check it. Enable waiting room is another great option if you want to control entry into your meeting a little bit. So a good example of this is again for a local meeting. If you click that, when a participant joins, they'll get a message that says, the host needs to let you into the meeting. Please wait. And then as host, you'll get a little pop-up window when the meeting's running saying Orion's waiting for the meeting to start. Click here to let them in. Or you can click reject and they will be removed from the meeting. So that's, again, in combination with requiring registration or a meeting password, you can really police who's going to come in and out of your meetings. So by default, for this option here, by default, people can log into a Zoom meeting even without being logged into Zoom itself. It's very easy to do via the app. You can just download it. The one downside of that is people could join and then cause some trouble, and then if you kick them out, they could just join right back again because they're not registered. So if that's a concern, if you click this, what it means is you need to have a Zoom account to join the meeting. I have not run into any problems. They've been unchecked yet, but if you do have that situation, this is one way to combat it. The breakout, I'm not going to talk too much in breakout at all through the course of these videos, but I will a bit in the final video, some of the best practices. But breakout rooms are really good tools if you're having larger meetings where you want people to be able to talk in small groups. Next is under Zoom, you have an option to record meetings. You can do that either to your local computer or onto the cloud. The cloud has benefits like the ability to be able to share the file with other people. You just share the link and they'll be able to download themselves or watch on the website. Downloading to local computer, however, is good if you want to edit the video later, and it just saves the step of having to download it. But I don't have the meeting record automatically. Most of our meetings don't need to be recorded, and we probably don't want them to be recorded, so I just leave that off there. One thing I will note, though, is keep in mind that Zoom, while secure, there are ways that people can record meetings without other participants knowing about it, even just by setting up their phone to record it. So it's no different than a normal in-person meeting where somebody could have their iPhone or whatever, their mobile device recording a meeting. So it's just to keep in mind that what is said in meetings isn't necessarily always going to remain secret. This final option here is called alternative hosts. So let's say you're a host and you have a meeting set up, but you think you might be late, and you might be 10-15 minutes late, but you want another person to be able to start the meeting with all the rights of the host. You can put their email address in here, and they'll be when they log in, they'll be the host until you come on. They need to have a Zoom account, however, when you do that. So once you've done all these options, you can click Save. And here's our meeting. Now, as I said before, you can go back and you can edit this meeting, can change any of these options. Here's the invite. So if you're to click this button here, here's the invite. And you can just copy and paste this into the email and send it off to the people who you want to join your meeting. Now, a little useful feature up here is if you click one of these buttons, automatically it will automatically add it to your calendar if you use one of those calendars. So I'm going to talk a little bit about registration here. So registration, as I mentioned, is a very powerful tool to maintain who can join your meetings. So here you can see who can register. As you can see, nobody's registered here. If somebody had, it would show me their name and their email address as well as what date they registered on. You also could click on their name and it will give more information if you've requested it. Now what we can do here though, there's quite a few options we can change here under registration. The first, you can have people automatically be approved. So the second they fill in a registration form and hit submit, it'll approve them automatically. You can also have the option to have the organizer manually approve every registrant. I generally leave it on automatically approve unless I have a reason not to. This option, if you want to be notified via email every time somebody registers, you can check that. If you have small meetings, that might be something you're interested in, but if you're going to be having large meetings with dozens of people in it, it might get pretty tiring to receive all those emails. This close registration option, what that means is if you have it checked, once the meeting starts, nobody else can sign up and join the meeting. So this is basically the Zoom equivalent of tiling the doors a little bit. And it's good if you want to make sure that once the meeting starts, nobody else can join. However, I generally leave it off. Most of the meetings we have, if people want to, sign up at last minute and come in, we want to encourage their participation, so we allow that. And finally, this show social share buttons on the registration page. I'll show you what that looks like, but basically we'll put a Facebook and Twitter link on the registration page so people can share it on their social media platforms. If you're having a union local meeting of some sort, you probably don't want that. You generally want that to be somewhat invite only. But if you're having a local community forum on issues affecting your community, maybe you do want to be able to get out far and wide. So next, when people sign up, they have to provide some information. By default, they have to provide their first name and their email address. And they can, if they wish, provide their they can provide a last name. So any things you check over here will be on the registration page. Last names by their default, you can't change that. But you can ask them for their job title or their organization or whatever you want. And then if you want them to have to put a reply in there, you would click required over here. So for a local union meeting, it would definitely make sense to have your first name, your last name, and your email address all required. You may also want to have some custom questions. So you could say, for example, if you have a multi-sector or a multi-worksite unit, you might want to say, what is your worksite? And from there, there's two options. So you have the short answer. So that gives them a text field where they can put in whatever they want. You can also make them select a single answer. So in this case, you could put the names of all the different work sites that you want. Or this could also be a simple question like, is this your first union meeting? So that way you might have some new people on it and you might want to go over the rules of order briefly at the beginning of the meeting, for example. So at any rate, we're just going to give a short answer here. We're going to create the question, and now you can see the question is there. You can add as many questions as you want. The order is important, so the lowest number will show up at the top of the list. So in this case, this will be very high up in the question. So if you worry about that, you'll want to make sure if that's something that concerns you, you want to make sure to keep track of that. Next thing is email settings. So when you send the email, so I'll show you what the email looks like. So when somebody signs up, they'll see an email similar to this. So it'll say subject, and it'll say the subject of the email will be meeting topic, and that's whatever you've set the meeting topic up to be. So in this case, it would be local meeting. So it'll be local meeting confirmation. Hi, and if I signed up, it would say Orion, thank you for registering for local meeting. You can now put more here. So you could say, you could put the agenda in here, or you can say we'll be talking about the upcoming contract negotiations, whatever you want. There is an option to please submit questions to, and I'll show you how to change the email address in a second. It then gives you all the details of the meeting, and then you can have something here, that a little sign off. You might say, thank you for registering. We look forward to see you at the meeting. To change that email that it goes to, any questions that they send, you just go here, and then you can change the name as well as the email address that you want people to communicate with you at. Next is branding. So this is a good time to actually show you the registration page, what it looks like. So this is what it would look like. So you would send this link to somebody and they would have to put in this information here. So your first name, last name, you can tell they're required because of the little red star, email address. And in this case, we asked them for their work site, so they'd have to put something in there. As I mentioned before, these are the social media sharing buttons. So for a local meeting, you probably want to turn these off. For a town hall where you want to get the public, you probably want to leave them on. So again, you can turn those on and off under here, under the registration setting here. You can just turn that off, and now they won't show up on that registration page. So branding on that registration page, so just go back here and we'll just reload and you'll see those disappear. So on here, you can put your logo up here, a banner, whatever you want. So you can see here, the banner is displayed at the top and then the logo is displayed at the right side. So if you want to make it look a little bit more like your local branding, then that's fine. Otherwise, you can just leave it. Now, polls are very powerful in our meetings. I really encourage you to read more up on polls, which you can go to the resources here, and there's a whole bunch of resources and pollings there. But briefly, you can add polls here. So this is good if you want to ask a question about, let's say, the local donating to the local food bank. And then you can put the question. Oh, sorry. Then you have a choice. You can do either single answer or multiple choice. For most of the things we're doing, because we're going to be doing elections and motions, you would have a simple yes or no. You could also put an abstained in there if you wish. Finally, you have anonymous, so that would anonymize the responses. And for most of the things, that's what we want to do. So you click save. And now that's one of the polls. You can have as many polls as you want. You can also have multiple questions within a poll. But the issue with that is you have to vote on all the questions at once. And in our local meetings, generally, we like to deal with one issue at a time. So the recommendation here is probably just to have a single question within each poll. So in brief, that's how you schedule a meeting in Zoom. If you want more information, I really encourage you to go over here to resources. You can see there's several resources up here. There's the video tutorials, which are excellent training opportunities that cover everything that I've talked about in much greater detail. There's also a live training of various levels from Zoom 101 all the way up to much more advanced options. And that allows you to ask questions as well. And finally, there's this FAQ down here that answers some of your more frequent questions that you might have. So I hope that's helpful. I'm going to be recording 2 more videos. One will be on how to actually host a meeting and how to use the desktop application to run the meeting. And I'm also going to be having a video on how to, some best practices of Zoom for uni meetings and some things for you to think about. So I hope that's helpful and have a good day.